What a night for Sean Monahan's memorable homecoming, and get out those red pens. It's report card time. Welcome back, Habs fans, to this week's episode of Habs Hockey Report, right here on the All Habs Hockey Magazine YouTube channel, part of Rocket Sports Media, and also an affiliate of the Hockey Podcast Network. As you can see right down here in the corner, we are sponsored by the fine folks over at DraftKings. Glad that you're here with us this week. My name is Amy Johnson. I'm your host of the show every week, also the lead correspondent over at ahlreport.com, following the Laval Rocket and Habs prospects in general. So glad that you are here with us today. We've got lots to talk about. We've got some grades to give out. Grades to give out. Always a fun time of year. And we've got some questions to ask, like this week's feedback forum question. We're going to expand on this in the first segment, but for now, start thinking about, does Alex Burrows have what it takes to be a coach in the NHL, particularly if he's coaching the power play? What are your thoughts on assistant coach Alex Burrows? We're going to get to that in just a moment. Let's not waste a second. Boy, it was a memorable homecoming for Sean Monahan on Thursday night this week. The Calgary trip. You could see that Monahan in his pregame press conference was a bit emotional about coming home to the fans in Calgary, offered them a very heartfelt thank you for always supporting him, for being so kind to him, and for really making Calgary a home for him for so long. But really, all of the excitement was building up to him making that homecoming and taking the ice at the Saddle Dome. And there was a little concern pregame when Sean Monahan showed up to the rink in a walking boot. I think that had a lot of people sit up and say, wait a minute, Sean Monahan, they said he was going to play tonight. What's going on? But there he was at warm-up. He was out on the ice and assisted on Juraj Slafkovsky's goal to open the game, which came like 13 seconds after opening puck drop. So it was certainly lots of fanfare, big standing ovation for Sean Monahan to welcome him back to Calgary. I think all in all, I think it was a pretty solid night for Sean Monahan, one that he won't forget for quite some time. And the Habs came out with a win. Jake Allen doing everything that he could to keep the Habs in it. They won it 2-1. Calgary did try their best to break through, and Jake Allen came up big for them in this game. So congratulations to Sean Monahan on what must have been kind of an emotional roller coaster for him this week, but lots of good memories to take away, and they go home with the 2 points. One thing I wanted to mention, we saw the Montreal Canadiens, of course, put out a little video when the team arrived saying, when in Calgary, dressed like the locals. And there was Michael Pezzetta getting off the bus with the bolo tie, the cowboy hat, the full getup. And it reminded me that I wanted to point out that I had a chance to sit down for an exclusive one-on-one interview with Canadiens forward Michael Pezzetta last week. We talked about a number of things. Most importantly was his big commitment and push for the Movember campaign. But we also had a chance to talk a little bit about what life is like for him now that he's under an NHL contract and playing in the National Hockey League. And here's just a little bit of that conversation.
My dream was always to play in the NHL, and I'm here now, so I definitely don't take that for granted, and I just try to enjoy every day to the fullest. I mean, I get to play in the National Hockey League, and you're going to the coolest places, and you're playing in cities that you've grown up watching games on TV and playing against players that you've seen on TV. And I think there's nothing better. So I just live each day in the moment, and I'm really enjoying myself.
What's the environment like for you this year, I should say?
Yeah, we got a really good group of guys. I think it's just a fun group, and everyone gets along really well. So it's something that I want to be a part of, and I'm happy to be a part of. And I think when you get a group that gets along and everyone respects each other and can have fun all together, it makes for a fun year. And especially we're off to a good start. And as you're winning games, I think it just builds a culture, and that's what they're doing here.
Now, if you'd like to hear the full interview between myself and Michael Pezzetta, then you're going to want to click the link above and head over to the Canadiens Connection podcast, hosted by Rick Stevens and Michael Spinella, on which I was a guest this week for this interview with Pezzetta. And last Saturday, this episode premiered. You can find it at canadiensconnection.fm. That's canadiensconnection.fm. It's about a 10-minute interview, and Pezzetta had a lot of great things to say, and really talked a bit about what's pushing him this year and what his goals are for himself in terms of hockey this year. So you definitely want to go check that out. And thanks to Pezzetta for taking the time for Rocket Sports to while they were on their road trip last week to speak with us. So you want to check that out. Also in that episode, speaking of Movember, Michael Spinella did an exclusive interview with the representative from Movember.ca, who is basically tasked with covering the entire country of Canada. That was a really fascinating interview. And really importantly is that Rick and Michael handed out their first quarter grades for the Montreal Canadiens, and they broke down every position. They analyzed and gave out grades for the forwards, for the defensemen, for the veterans, for the rookies, for the special teams, for the goaltending. They went really in depth at each position. And so when you do go listen to that Pezzetta interview, you'll want to stick around and also be sure to hear the entire podcast and get their grades and get their analysis, because it was really good. So that, however, brings us to our grades. We're going to start in this segment with the Montreal Canadiens. In the next segment, we're going to give out a report card for the Laval Rocket as well. So what I'm going to do is just give you one overall grade for each team, and then I'm going to break down kind of the highs and lows of what brought me to that grade. And for the Montreal Canadiens, I should have a drum roll here, really. Okay. And the Montreal Canadiens, my grade for the first quarter for the Montreal Canadiens is a B-. Yep, a B-. How did I arrive at a B-? Well, first of all, let's talk about the good things, because to be quite honest, going into this season, I expected my first quarter grade for the Canadiens to probably be much lower than this. So that's kind of first and foremost, is that they're exceeding expectations. I don't think anyone, myself included, given the information we had a couple of months ago, would have predicted that the Canadiens would be sitting where they're at right now and actually doing positive things in just about every game that they play, despite whether or not they come out with a win. But they've been winning. So they're exceeding expectations. The young players are excelling. We've seen tremendous play from Caden Gooley. We've seen Jordan Harris and Arbor Jacki really step into the league and take that challenge on head first. We've seen Cole Caulfield absolutely explode this season. Nick Suzuki is coming into his own as well. You're just really seeing young players kind of take the bull by the horns and really make a place for themselves and give coaches and management and fans reasons to say, okay, that guy belongs here. And that in a rebuild year is very important. Now, why is it if those things are so good, why is it only a B-, which is sliding obviously towards a C? Well, because there's still a lot of issues. There's too much dead weight on the roster. That means veterans who aren't pulling their weight. There are guys who just are not doing anything to help the organization or the team move forward. And so there's too much of that. I'm certainly hoping that Kent Hughes is going to be active before the trade deadline and cut some of the dead weight. Kind of going hand in hand with that is there are too many big money contracts you're not getting a good return on investment on them. And so that kind of goes hand in hand with guys who are on, veterans who are on the team who aren't pulling their weight, but also a lot of them also come with lots of money. And some of that needs to go. Jonathan Drouin. And last but not least, and this is really what kind of spurred the feedback forum question for this week, is the power play for this team has been embarrassingly bad. And I'm ignoring the fact that there was a power play goal this week. It has been embarrassingly bad. And if you read Rick Stevens' game recap from the Tuesday night game against San Jose, where they got shut out 4-0 against the Sharks on home ice, and went 0 for 6 on the power play. That's not good. That's really not good. And that's not just a single sample. And so in Rick's game recap on allhabs.net, he asked the question in his game summary. He said, serious questions need to be asked about whether or not Alex Burrows is cut out to be a coach in the NHL. And so, you know what? I am taking that challenge, Rick Stevens, and I am asking that question to all of you, our viewers here at Habs Hockey Report. Does Alex Burrow have what it takes to be cut out to be an NHL assistant coach, particularly if he's going to be the one running the power play? Because we have not seen Alex Burrows put out a good, solid, well-developed power play yet. It just hasn't happened. Maybe the first couple of weeks that he first got promoted from Laval, and kind of sparked this energy on the power play, and it fizzled within a couple of weeks, and it hasn't really come back. It left kind of permanently. And this season, it's been absolutely abysmal. So that is my feedback forum question for you. What do you think about Alex Burrows and his ability to coach the power play? So there you have it. It's my B- for the Canadiens for the first quarter. I don't think they're going to get grounded. I don't think there will be detention for a B-. Certainly plenty of areas to improve. We don't want to see them go in the other direction at the midway point of the season. And now they're about to gear up for, are you ready for late nights? Do you stay up for those late night West Road swings? Because there's going to be some late games, some 10 p.m. Eastern time starts coming up here for the Montreal Canadiens, and it'll be fun to see what they're able to do through the month of December. Well, on this week's Rocket Booster, we basically come to you with the same thing from the first segment, except now we're doing it for the Laval Rocket, handing out report cards. And so, where's that drum roll? Okay. Report card results for the Laval Rocket for the first quarter of the season. A D. Solid D. I spared them the F because there have been a couple of things that have been good. Like in Montreal, in Laval, when they're given the opportunity, the prospects are showing signs of life, and they're showing good signs. Jesse Ylönen, although he has been put down on the third line now for a few weeks from the first line, I still believe Jesse Ylönen is having a good season. Justin Barron has been a solid fixture on the top pairing all season long, and Justin Barron is doing a really good job. In fact, he was one of the league's stars last week. He's had some pretty significant performances, even in losses for the Laval Rocket. Raphael Harvey-Pinard is starting to kind of find his rhythm a bit. Xavier Simoneau has had his moments, and he's actually sometimes getting top 6 minutes these days. Jan Mysak still, I I don't want to say struggling, but you can typically find him as the fourth line center. I think there's still plenty of development to come, but there have been sparks for him as well. So, it's Matthias Norlinder just came back from injury. He's had a decent season so far. So there has been some good kind of hopeful and encouraging signs from the prospects, as well as, despite where they're sitting, Laval has one of the league's top scorers, and that's Anthony Richard, who has for a little while taken first place in the league as the leading scoring in points, but he remains up near the top as other forwards kind of join him in that around the league. But that's really about all of the positives to bring out from this. Roster management hasn't been great for Laval. I think because of how poorly they have started this season, it seems like they're desperate for wins. And so, the roster is being deployed in a way that's perhaps not prospect development first, which is a little disappointing to see. They're certainly not meeting expectations, unlike their NHL partners who are exceeding expectations. Laval, coming off of a Game 7 Eastern Conference final run last year, is certainly not meeting expectations. Everyone knew that they would be a younger team and a less experienced team. I don't think anybody knew that they would be this bad. And for me, that goes to my next point in this grade, in that really what it is it's exposing the poor decisions that were made in free agency over the summer. There was a little bit of a short foresight in free agency, and there were way too many guys who were either brought back or signed in free agency from other teams, who seem to have, it's more of kind of like if it's a guy who's Quebecois, then let's bring him in if he also has some skill, instead of bringing in just really solid, good AHL veterans and free agency signings to support having such a young and inexperienced team. And I think that's starting to show as a weakness for Laval's lineup. Their goaltending has been absolutely unreliable. There are nights, Kevin Poulin stood on his head the other night. Caden Primo has had maybe one game this season that I thought he actually looked pretty sharp. Aside from that, the goaltending's not been reliable. Their penalty kill is the worst in the league. Montreal has problems with the power play. Laval can't kill a penalty. It's not been good. And part of going hand in hand with that is that they're very indisciplined. They are in the penalty box constantly. So really, there's a lot to work on. Laval is still in the basement. They're still not in a playoff position in the North Division. They managed to get a win on Wednesday night in Utica. They did manage to get a win despite it being tied. They won in overtime. So they did manage to get out of last place in the North Division and out of last place in the Eastern Conference, but it's just by the hair of their chinny chin chin. And most of the teams around them have a lot of games in hand on Laval. So I'm hoping very, very much that come midterms, we're going to have an improved grade to report on the Laval Rocket report card, because a D is not sustainable for the entire year if you're looking to build prospects in the organization's rebuild who are going to be ready to move into NHL roles once some of that dead weight and those veterans get moved out. You need to have guys who are ready to step into those roles, and right now Laval is not producing that. So we'll have to wait to see. Laval also is out on a Western road swing this coming week. They will be visiting the Abbotsford Canucks, Vancouver's AHL affiliate, on Saturday and Sunday. So late nights for the AHL Report crew as well this coming weekend. But you know that we'll have you covered with full recaps at ahlreport.com. We want to say thank you to all of you who wrote in to wish all of us at Rocket Sports who celebrate American Thanksgiving a happy Thanksgiving. We really appreciate that. I want to say a big congratulations to the Rocket Sports team on their Movember achievements. I know I had told you a few times that I was doing the Move for Movember challenge. I was tasked with walking 60 kilometers in the month of November, representing the 60 men we lose every hour due to men's health issues. I am proud to say that I hit 66 kilometers in the month of November. So, met and exceeded my goal, which I was proud to do. Thank you for those of you who supported the entire team. Rocket Sports Media, all Habs Hockey Magazine, was able to raise $395. We had some great mustaches on the team for the guys who were growing them, and our team overall logged 138 kilometers of activity to help raise awareness for the cause as well. So thanks so much to all of you who supported us, whether it was just sharing our fundraising page or if you donated as well. We appreciate that, and congratulations to all of my teammates here at Rocket Sports on a great 9th year of participating in Movember. That's going to wrap it up for us this week. If you missed last week's show, you can check it out right here. And don't forget to come back next week for another episode of Habs Hockey Report.